Hi, everybody. Welcome along to episode 88 of Percussion Discussion. Hope you're well out there. Please check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, our world famous YouTube channel where you can find all of our conversations, past and present. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, it really helps us. And this way, you won't miss any of the upcoming editions of Percussion Discussion. If you'd prefer to listen on the go, then the great news is all of our conversations are available in podcast form, and these are free to download from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all of your usual podcast providers. So if that's your thing, you know what to do. On to today's guest. We are firmly back in the Legends Lounge again. An incredible musician at the ripe old age of 82 years old. He's still playing, writing and recording every single day, which is an achievement in itself. He already has behind him an OBE and 3 Ivor Novello awards. A remarkable drummer since 1961. He has held the drum stool with, of course, first Cliff Richard and the Shadows, then to become just the Shadows. He's also played for the likes of Labi Siffre, Ella Fitzgerald, Cliff Richard, Olivia Newton-John. The list goes on and on. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome the wonderful Mr. Brian Bennett.
You're very welcome.
And thanks for making the time, because I know you don't stop working, do you?
Lucky enough, I don't. No, I'm one of the lucky ones.
Well, it's a nice position to be in, and as we can see, you've got a very luxurious studio space behind you. So I guess you spend most of your days sat in there doing whatever, writing, composing.
Every day, I'll write something every day.
Really?
Yeah. And if I've got a project on where I've got to play, then I've got my little practice pad by my side, and I have to sort of practice. If you don't play, as you know, if you don't play for 6 months and someone says, can you do a session? You have to really sort of, get ready for it very quickly.
Yeah. Because, I mean, although we're talking drums today, that's although I'm guessing that was the first thing you did. But since then, we've got pianist, composer, arranger. Do you conduct as well? Are you?
Yes, yeah.
So which is it's quite a CV to have behind you, isn't it? Or,
yeah.
Quite a toolkit, I should say, maybe.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite thing? Will drums always be
always? Yeah. Always. I started as a drummer. I played drums when I was 3. Drums, I mean pots and pans.
Sure.
I was born in 1940, you see, so the war was on, and the big hit band at the time was the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and they were stationed here, and they worked out of Aeolian Hall in Bond Street, and they had live broadcasts every day, and we used to listen to them, and I used to sort of tap along, according to my mum, but I can remember it, tapping along to In the Mood, with wire cooking brushes on her pots and pans.
Fabulous. Yeah. So one of the things I always ask is, what's your earliest memory of music? And I'm guessing that was it.
Well, yes, that was it. Yeah, it was drumming and big bands, and then my dad used to take me to the theatre now and again, and I saw the lead violinist. He was actually conducting the orchestra from a violin. I thought, I want to be a violinist. So I had a year of violin lessons, but it didn't work out. I was just born to be a drummer, I suppose.
I mean, violin is obviously it's a very different thing, as we know. But the thing is, with drums, it's the most instantly satisfying instrument you can play on. Whether it's a nice noise or not, it's a noise.
Yeah, it's the first thing a baby does. The first thing a baby does, it claps its hands, it makes a noise.
Yeah,
and so it's instinct, and if you combine your instinct with a bit of study and learn a technique, if you can find a good teacher, then you're on a winner.
Absolutely. So obviously the violin didn't didn't really go anywhere. How soon before drums, kind of came to the forefront?
Well, apart from being a kid, I've always, driven people nuts with just tapping on things.
Yeah.
I'm a tapper,
Yeah.
So I used to be a printer, and on the side of the printing press that I was, there was a piece of wood which had a great sound to it, and I would tap on that thing and drive everybody nuts, and was almost fired. but no, drums has been part of my life forever. Really, it's just quite natural for me.
So did you take lessons then as a young lad?
Not as a young lad. No, I learned and listened, and then when I started having to do like pit work and things where you had to sort of read, I went to a man called Frank King.
Okay, I know the name. Yeah.
He was there was a place called Golden Square, and in Golden Square was the first Foots drum company. And in the basement there was a guy called Frank King, who, apart from selling drums, taught down there. You know, so he took me through the Sam Mulano book of drumming, and it was basically introducing you to pit drumming, where you've got to set your drum kit up in a pit so you can see the conductor, see the music, see what's on stage, and angle it in such a way that it all worked for you.
Yeah.
So that was good. Change a program every week, so it was a bit of a roast.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to learn. You can't walk into a session and start sight reading. You've got to work your way up.
Absolutely. I mean, the pit stuff is pretty unique, isn't it? It's
it's a great discipline. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, not only working with a conductor, which is a great skill to have, but the sight read, as you say, different score every week.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's less and less of it these days, isn't there? So it's
there is, and quite honestly, there's not a lot of great. There's not a lot of arrangers that know how to write drum parts properly. I've come in to a session or whatever it is, and I've seen a lot of fly shit on the paper. You know, I've gone, Christ, and I've said to the, do you really want me to do that? You know, and that usually they don't know what they want, or they know what they want, but they don't know how to put it down.
Sure.
And you know, it took a while to sort of not get nervous about that. You know, you look at a part and you think that's stupid. Some guys actually put the sticking down. You know, right, left, tom, right, left, and you think that's. And they say, I want it to swing like the Americans do. And you think, well, it's not going to happen if I try and roast my way through that. So, you know, you interpret their wishes, or you look at the part, you listen to the music, and you use your ears most of the time.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. That sounds like solid advice to me. And I think a lot of people have said very similar, you know, to what you've just said. And you've got to be sensible about it, haven't you? As you say, there's nothing nicer than a really well-written part in a nice font. You know, when it comes to a fill-in, it says fill-in, unless it's something that really needs punctuating, then
There was a guy, my best friend, he's not with us anymore, Steve Gray, a great arranger, and he'd put drum fill in brackets and he'd put do not trust. I thought that was
oh, lovely. So obviously the lessons are going. Were you when the pit work was going? Were you professional at that point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So does this predate the Two Eyes?
Or pit drumming? Let me just think for a second. I don't think it did. The Two Eyes was the first port of call in London. I was only about 16 when I went down there. So we played most nights, and then I became the house drummer down there where I met Clem. He was the other drummer.
Absolutely.
So we used to share the drum seat down there. And it was great because a lot of people came to the Two Eyes was the sort of the birthplace of rock and roll in England.
Yeah.
So anyone that wanted to sing, or any agent that wanted to see a singer, would go down there and look around, scout for talent, as it were. And I'd be in the corner, or Clem would be in the corner, and we got a lot of work through that. Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, what a showcase for, as well as the singers, for the band, you know, I mean, it must have led to a lot of work. And can I ask, I mean, what kind of size venue would this have been? Would it big or small?
Two Eyes?
Yeah.
Oh no, very small.
Right.
Very small. I mean, if you got 100 people down there, you'd be sweating. And it was a fire trap. I mean, you wouldn't be allowed to go down a hole in the ground in the middle of Soho and play. But it was a great atmosphere. It was a great band. It was Brian Lockin was the bass player. Tony Sheridan was the guitarist. There was a few other people that came and went from down there, but Vince Taylor went down there, and not Marty Wilde, but Jack Good went down there looking for musicians for his show Oh Boy.
Oh,
And
okay.
and he liked the Tony Sheridan trio, which was me, Licorice, and Tony,
Yeah.
and booked us for the Oh Boy show. So then people on there saw us play. We played for Brenda Lee and Conway Twitty and a few American guys that came over. So that was good. Yeah.
Were you obviously at the Two Eyes when you'd get a singer showing up? Would they ever bring dots with them, or would it be just
No.
Any advance notice to learn, or is it just literally on the fly?
No, on the fly. It starts here and it ends here, But I used to have it was a bit crafty, but I used to have an exercise book. I'm trying to think of his name now, not John Mohegan, but it was a sight reading book, and I used to play the ride and the hi-hat and the bass drum. But I used to, if it was just not many people in, I used to just sort of do fills, looking at the exercise books as a practice in life, It was just to get a bit of discipline going.
Yeah, of course.
Just to push my technique forward a bit.
Yeah. It's a paid practice.
Yes. Well, paid. It was 80. I think it was 18 shillings a night. Yeah.
What does that? I mean, in today's money, what's that? Is that
today's money? Good question. I suppose about a pound, couple of pounds a night.
Right. But when you're learning your trade,
yes,
and the work you had from it. That's
well, that's it. Yeah. And I wanted to be a drummer, no matter what.
Yeah.
A lot of guys I knew at school that were sort of in bands. I mean, I did dance bands and things before rock and roll really came to the screen via Blackboard Jungle and the movie that did Rock Around the Clock, the Bill Haley piece. Before that happened, so when then rock and roll sort of hit, and everybody said it was going to be fine. That'll last a couple of years, new fad, and of course it changed everything.
Yeah.
It changed the way we listen to music, and it's still there. Yeah. And it's still progressing into something else.
Yeah, amazing. And this is just a side note, but Brian Locking actually lived not far from me in North Wales before he sadly passed a few years back. So he was a regular. He turned up a great harp player as well as a bass player.
No, he was.
And he'd appear at different jam nights, and people wouldn't have any idea of what he's done in the past, and it was just nice to just sit back and smile.
Well, we're all like that. None of us had big egos. If we were with a group of people and someone started going, "I've done this, I don't that," he'd get ripped,
Yeah. But so it's just a little side note, but literally 8 or 10 miles from where I am. So but there we go. And then obviously the Shadows happened. How did that come about?
Well, it came about because I knew the Shadows anyway. Yeah. Because when Hank and Bruce came down from Newcastle, I was at the Two Eyes, so they saw me play down there. Of course. And then Tony made a very swift exit. There was an argument or something, and I was sort of the number one choice. So they phoned. I tell you what I was doing. I'd stopped touring with Marty Wilde and all the rock and things, and I wanted to raise my game, and I was going into the pit of Stop the World, I Want to Get Off.
Okay.
Which was Tony Newley's big show in town.
Yeah.
And Bruce called my wife, Margaret, and said, right, speak to Brian Bennett. He's in town at the moment. He's going we want him to join the Shadows, So she said, well, I don't think so. She said, he's toured for the last 10 years and he's just going into Stop the World, I Want to Go Off with a big show. So anyway, Bruce called me and said, we'd like you to join. I said, I've done all the touring I want to do. This is not me being peak time, you understand? So I said, it's good money. I said, I'm in town. I can do sessions during the day and I'm getting £25 a week. So he said, all right, double it.
Oh.
So I said to my wife, can't turn down 50 quid a week in 1961,
That's huge money.
It was big money. I can't work it out what it is now, but it was big bucks.
Yeah.
Which meant we could afford a flat and we could afford to move on and set our family up, So that was it. It was in a day. I came up next day.
Yeah.
And joined.
And at that time, this is pre-Beatles, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So,
61, yeah.
I mean, there wasn't many acts in the UK bigger than the Shadows, was there? Let's be honest.
Not really, no.
No. So it was I mean, huge opportunity, wasn't it?
I think the nearest was probably the Tornadoes,
Yeah.
which was Clem's band, and they had a big hit with Telstar.
Yeah.
But you know, there wasn't anything bigger than Cliff and the Shads at the time.
Absolutely huge. I mean, how did it? Was it an instant fit for you? Did it feel right straight away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't well. I mean, I had to listen to what Tony did. I didn't want to just barge in and go, right, I play like this. You know, you have to sort of think, right, what's the? My job is to sound like the Shadows. You know, so I had to learn how Tony did his fills and how he played, so that it wouldn't be a great upheaval.
Yeah.
And I slowly brought my stamp on things over the years, and maybe changed a few things. But no, it was overnight and most enjoyable.
Wow, incredible! And it's one of those things, because obviously some younger folk might be watching this who maybe don't realise how big the Shadows really were. They were enormous. They were huge, weren't they? As we've already said, you know. So I just can't imagine that feeling of suddenly joining the biggest thing in the UK that's happening.
Well, it was slightly different for me because I set my goal. My benchmark was extremely high.
Yeah.
So when I joined the Shadows, I didn't actually think I've made it now, so that's it. It was just another stepping stone to where I wanted to be, which I didn't really know. I knew I was writing. I mean, the first thing I did when I joined the Shadows was I wrote a thing called "Spring Is Nearly Here," which was a B-side to something or other, and then I made sure I was kept writing. And then when we worked with Cliff and film scripts came in, I wrote things. I co-wrote things like "Summer Holiday" and the big movie scores and that. You know.
I mean,
So
how incredible is that for the band? You know, most people bring a drummer in and they're not expecting songs to be written or co-written by them.
No.
It's slightly unusual. But I mean, at this point, had you started playing other instruments, dabbling on different things?
I dabbled on the piano, really, yeah. And
So
still dabbling on the piano.
But obviously enough to contribute to writing a massive song, a huge song at the time, wasn't it? And still today,
well,
you know.
Today, you know, I mean, I didn't realize how big it was then because it was really simple. I can tell you exactly where and when it was written. We were in Stockton-on-Tees doing a pantomime. And the script came, Bruce brought the script in for Summer Holiday. And Myers and Cass had written this, the screenplay and all the production numbers. So Bruce said, "Come on, we've got to write something." And I said, "I'm a bit busy at the moment. I was doing a postal course with Berklee School of Music to learn arranging and all the other bits of music I wanted to do." He said, "Come on," I was doing figured bass, sort of, you know, which was like 2-5-1 D minor G 7th C is 2-5-1 in figured bass. So directly he played a couple of bars. I went, "We're going where the sun shines brightly. We're going where the sea is blue. We've seen it in the movies. Now let's see if it's true. Is that all right? Yeah, great. Let me go back to my postal course." And I'd just written one of the big hits in sort of like 20 minutes with Bruce. It was a great moment. Well, a great moment now. I look back on it and think I was in the pit, just doing up on the upright piano in an afternoon, doing a postal course.
So when you said you were doing panto,
yes,
this is whilst you're in the Shadows now, or is this the Shadows were playing in the panto?
Yeah.
Is that a bit unusual to have a band of that sort of stature doing a pantomime?
Well, it's a good question. I actually look back and thinking that what did our management put us in a pantomime in Stockton-on-Tees for? But it was regular money. We had an agency, the Grade Organisation, we're a big organisation, and then they would subsequently put us in the pantomime, which was a few years later at the Palladium Pantomime, and we wrote the whole score. So and we wrote 3 scores for Lady and Pantomime.
I mean, that's slightly different, isn't it? But being just backing musicians of a band of that stature is really it's what you were earning, and as you said,
well, I was earning 50 quid a week, so I don't know what anyone else was earning.
Yeah,
probably much more than that anyway.
No, I guess not. But because I know I've done plenty of pantomimes over the years, and I've never been in a multi-million selling band. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Wow. And I have to ask, the traditional grip, was that all? Obviously, we're talking drums. We're getting a bit drum geeky. Has that always been there from the beginning?
Yes. I tried both out. I went to a guy called Bruce Gaylor, and it was I haven't got a pair of sticks at the moment, but it was that sort of, and to see a drummer, especially an American drummer with a straight back, sitting up, his elbows in, playing correctly with a standard kit, is a really lovely thing to see. Once the drums started getting high and all that went on, I mean, the thing is, reaching up to a cymbal, it was all very modern, but it was wasting energy. So, the energy can be, you know that medium playing is from the wrist, medium heavy is from the elbows, and if you want to really thump it, you use you can get your shoulder stuck in. So there's all, and the fingers for real quiet stuff. So if you've got a good technique, you can actually do anything.
Yeah,
you can do anything. Technique comes first.
Okay.
Because if you think of some people said, I don't want a bit of technique and reading, is feel. I said, yes, it is feel. But if you want if you think of something that you want to play and you haven't got the technique to play it, you're messed up, But if you've got your technique to start with, you can do anything.
Absolutely, they're like the tools that you have.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's the equivalent to having, a saw and a hammer for a joiner, isn't it? Really,
yes, it is. Yeah.
No, because I mean, I dabble with traditional, but I do switch about a little bit.
Yeah.
But depending on what I'm playing, obviously. But before we go any further, now I know you've influenced so many people. I've done, I don't know how many of these I've done. I've done a lot, and especially the UK guys who influenced you. Your name comes up so many times from.
I'm honoured.
I'm just trying to think of some of the guys now. Oh gosh, Chris Merrick Hughes, the producer. He was also one of the original Adam and the Ant drummers. He mentioned your name straight away. But one guy who everyone should know is, of course, Simon Kirke of Free and Bad Company. Now, you were the first name he mentioned. So
yeah.
I actually emailed Simon to tell him I was talking to you, and he said, "Oh, I've got a couple of questions, so I hope you don't mind."
No.
Now, I don't like reading things, but here I wrote down his exact words, and it says, "Brian was a major influence on me, and I've often wondered if he had a favorite snare drum." So that's the first thing from Simon.
Yeah. Well, I got 2 favorite snare drums, and I've still got them. One's the Ludwig 600, the traditional brass one.
Oh yeah.
And I've got what I call an ASP. It's a leady shell with leady fittings, and then it's got Ludwig lugs and hoops. It's got a Rogers snare release, which is really the best. The old Rogers it just comes up flat and it's tight and it doesn't move. Yeah. And it's just been on nearly everything I've done. It's on my recording things.
Wow.
The Ludwig 400, not 600, it's a 400.
Yeah.
The Ludwig silver one I've had, and I've got a piccolo brass Ludwig. But no, I've kept all my snare drums.
So, well, there we are. Now the next one, and I think this is an obvious one to ask about, but again, I'm going to read it as Simon wrote it. It said, his drum solo on Little B knocked me out when I was 15 years old. It still does nearly 60 years later. So there we go. So for somebody who plays with such time and space and everything is for the song, there's no, everything's done tastefully. How did it feel to be offered this, this amazing chance to do this and really let rip?
Yeah, well, I suggested it because I play for the song, so I try not to get in the way of the song. But they have a bit where they like to tune their guitars up, so they go off and tune all their guitars off, and they just leave me alone for 20 minutes, which is nice. And I've always liked solos because the solo is just a piece of music. It should be treated as a not just a thrash, but it has to have form. It has a beginning and a middle, and some diversions and a finale.
Yeah.
And I try to keep it in a form, so you can. I think in my mind, right? Okay, this section now is going to last 2 or 3, and it just should be on the snare drum, just to get my chops like ready to go.
Sure.
And then I'll try some things out with the small tom-tom, and I treat it like a conversation, like this drum's talking to that drum, and they're interacting between each other. Then the small tom-tom comes in with the large tom-tom and things like that.
Absolutely.
But it's just like writing a bit of music live. It's just improvising live.
Yeah, to me, it almost tells a story, which is
it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
And nice textures in there. I was watching some footage a little while back of you, and you switched to brushes
Yes.
mid solo, and it's such a nice.
Yeah.
It's delicate. It's and you just say the form. It's nice to have variations on a theme, if you like.
Yes.
Because so many solos these days are just,
Yeah.
great technical prowess, but it's not particularly musical for my ears.
No.
But obviously the recorded version, obviously it's about four-ish minutes. Did you just do exactly what you played, or have you always, embellished it live?
No, everything's embellished, but that particular recording on the second album, which was the Little B thing,
Yes.
recorded at Abbey Road, I'd actually found my way on the road for about 6 months before we recorded that.
Sure.
So I knew more or less that the first bit was the introduction, which is like a Max Roach-ish thing. And you would have, being a drummer, you'd probably recognize that immediately.
Indeed.
And then I just worked it out in sections and tried to tell a story.
Yeah, because I know it's a real, it was a real firm favorite with the audience as well, wasn't it? It was like,
Yeah. And if you get it right and you get the right audience, sometimes you get to an audience and say, I would like to feature Brian Bennett playing a drum solo. And you can see about 50 people get up to go and have a cigarette.
Well, I've been lucky enough to catch it live in Llandudno in the theatre there. And
right. Okay.
I was knocked out by it. Just that, dynamics is a daft little word, but doesn't it mean so much?
It means everything. It means everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously, I know you released a solo album, which I absolutely love, which is Change of Direction. And it kind of, people say a jazz album, but I don't see it as a jazz album. There's a few jazz influences in there maybe, but funk and pop. That must have been a fun thing to do.
It was great to do. It was wonderful to do. And Norrie let me do it, Norrie Paramore. And I had some jazzers. Alan Skidmore was in there, and there were some great players in there.
Not half. There's a song. Canvas is the song. Now I don't know. Is that an original or is that?
I wrote that. Yeah.
That is a terrific song, and the flute playing on it is just phenomenal.
Skidmore nose flute. Yeah, that was used for the French news. The French news.
Was it really?
In the 60s.
Wow.
French collection company was called CISAM. They're like the French PRS, and they had a rate of how much they would pay. So if they played like 6 seconds of it, it's a certain rate. So if it goes over 6 seconds, it's a full rate. So they used to go pull the faders down. Now it's the news on the 6, and then they put it up again. So they kept pulling it out now and again to save money.
Oh dear me! But also, a great album. Did it sell well? Did it do any good business or?
No, not really. No.
And some great covers on it. Sunny Afternoon Kinks is such a lovely, some great Hammond playing on there as well. And
the great late Alan Hawkshaw, of course, one of my best friends who passed away last year, regrettably.
Yeah, just amazing. So obviously, Are the shadows still together in a form of some kind of form? I mean, I don't see anything much in the social
Not
media.
really. I mean, geographically, it's impossible because Hank lives in Perth in Western Australia.
Yeah,
But I mean, Bruce and I often see each other
sure.
for lunches or dinners or just having a natter.
Mm,
But it's just too far away to go.
yeah,
I
cool.
mean, I'd love to go. I'd do it. I'd do it again.
Would you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's still a hunger from the audiences to see it, isn't it? I think there always will be.
Yeah. When we did Eurovision in 1975, we hadn't worked together for probably 10 years. It was a long time. So we thought we'd sort of like just do a couple of gigs just to feel our feet, and see if they still remember us, because we'd done different things. And I never forget this. It actually brings a lump to my throat if I remember it correctly. But we walked out on Fairfield Hall, and the audience stood up and started applauding. And we couldn't play a note for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They just kept. It was like a real well back. It was quite emotional. It was lovely, lovely feeling. And it's great to know the affection that the audience actually did have for us.
I mean, I don't think I'm being over the top when I describe the Shadows as a British institution. I think that's a fair comment, don't you?
I can't say really. I'm in amongst it.
I'll say it. I'll say it. It's fine. And do you know what I like as well? And I've listened to them over the years, lots and lots. Considering how much talent is in that band, that everyone gets space. There's no treading on toes musically, of course. Everyone has space, and the recordings always show that. And even live, it's the same, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, they were written and arranged correctly, so everybody's got their place. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, obviously, Shadows aside, you've done session work for. I was looking on your website, and the big hit for the big first hit for Olivia Newton-John. I didn't realize you'd played on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If not for you, I mean, what I'm guessing that was would that be mid to late 70s? Just trying to
Probably.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not great with dates.
yeah.
It's all a long. Everything's a long time ago now. Um, uh, but no, I remember when she came over and she was there was two of them, Pat and Olivia. They had a double act, and they toured with us and did seasons with us, so we knew them. Um, and and Bruce wanted to produce her.
Yeah.
And then John Farrar came over and produced with her as well. So that became a great team. And then, of course, when she morphed into Sandy and went to America, and she was huge.
Roof off, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously Ella Fitzgerald is also on your CV, which is a lovely thing to have for anybody on their CV.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's nothing. To walk in and when you're doing sessions, you don't know who's going to be there. I mean, you walk in there 1 minute. I did an album for Rock Hudson.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And a few people that were actors like Richard Harris and those things. And then when your heroes walk in, you don't know who it's going to be. And so Ella walks in, and I thought, wow, there she is. And she sang. She looked at the sheet music. She got the sheet music and just read it off with the band, all in one room at Olympic Studios in Barnes. And that was amazing.
I mean, the track I've heard is "Get Ready." Was that just one? Was that the track? The one track, or?
Yeah. I did 3 with her, but that was the one.
Yeah,
that was a good one. And it was interesting because when I was musical director for Cliff for a certain time, and his manager David Bryce, who's again not with us, said we've got this brand new track. You want it because we want Cliff to open. It's called "Get Ready." I said, "Yeah, I know it." He says, "No, you wouldn't know it because it's not released yet." I said, "No, I know it. How do you know it?" I said, "I was on it." And they said, "Oh, don't be stupid. It's an American guy. You can hear." And I just went, "Okay, fine." I like that. I love that.
Oh, that's. I mean, I don't know. It would have been a kind of. I'm just trying to think now. Oh, dear me, an Al Jackson kind of sort of playing on that one. Would you agree?
Well, I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember who the producer was. But he was very specific. Some of these American producers that came over, they were very specific where and how you should play. He came over, what's his name? He came over to me and said, "Hi, Brian, can you just hit the middle of the snare drum? No rim shots, minimal fills." And it was really just easy, minimal fills. And he almost drew a circle on the snare drum, just middle of the snare drum. Didn't. And it was nice to be part of that sort of creative spirit in the studio.
Yeah.
And it was a great record.
It's kind of a departure for Ella Fitzgerald from her usual material.
It was.
Because, you know,
It was.
She's not really known for soul and Motown, is she?
No, but and I think it was the only one she actually did. And I think the label, it was Reprise, and it was started. I think Quincy was involved in it, and Sinatra was involved in the label.
Yeah.
So she would have been had a call from them, you know, to say, you know, we want you to do this. So long as you can get Brian Bennett to play the drums, as she said, I'll do it.
What can you say? Do you enjoy the session work? It's obviously a different challenge playing live, isn't it?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a challenge, and even with the big boys, you know, like Ralph Salmons and Clem and things like that, you never know what's going to be on the paper when you. So you walk in and you quietly go over to your drum thing, and the music is out. You sort of look at the paper and go, "Is this the day I'm going to get sent home?" You know.
Well, it's lovely to hear you talk like this because Clem's been on the show and Ralph has been on the show as well. And
right.
And I've talked at length about, you know, how would you go about sight reading a movie score, or how would it work? And everyone has been brutally honest and said, you know, there's some days it's like, oh, which is nice to know that, you know, us mortals, you know, we're all the same.
All of us, we're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all the same. It's just that us doing it every day, and with those guys, we allow ourselves to say, that's not what you really mean. This is what you mean, you know, and you can do that most of the time.
Yeah, of course. You know, it's a lot of common sense, isn't it? And so,
excuse me. Yeah.
So, would you rather do it live or studio? What's your preference?
I like both. Both are good. Both are just different things, but it's still playing. So they're both good disciplines, you know. And if you do great big halls like we did the O2, when you're playing the O2, you can't do little fiddly little trills. You know, you just got to almost play to the size of the building and just broad strokes and keep it simple.
Yeah.
You don't mind if I have a drink whilst we're doing this?
Not in the slightest. No. Enjoy yourself. You know, over the years, recording has changed vastly. You know, from going on 2-inch tape or whatever, you know, back at the beginning. Now we've got Pro Tools and Logic. Do you approach things quite differently in the studio these days?
Not really. I mean, I've still got to play for whatever the tune demands. But nowadays, the editing facilities are amazingly good, you know. And if you work to a click, see, some people, when Click came in because of films, and they had to edit spot on and timing, and also with pop tracks, a lot of drummers couldn't play to a click. There was a time, you know, that they just couldn't do it, and they said it was unnatural, and they'd push and pull, and they didn't work because they couldn't do it. But obviously Ralph and Clem and the big boys, they could do it because they played in perfect time anyway. So playing to click is okay. Playing live, I like all forms of playing. You play to the situation that presents itself to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so obviously we've had a strange few years with COVID and what have you. And I'm guessing with your amazing facility there, I guess you've been busy. You said you write every day, and so I guess you've just carried on.
I did.
I don't want to say as normal, but as normal as you could anyway.
Yeah. It was a different year. It was a year out. It was a year out. But I've got my own projects, and I've built up a library company, so I could add to my repertoire of library music that I'm doing, and invent things. And you know, I come in here every day, you know, and play or write or just do something musical.
Yeah. And is your house attached to the studio? So have you got far to go, or is it?
No, it's a part. This is like this. This was what was this? This was just a downstairs cloakroom, I think. Yeah.
Superb. Fantastic. Well, look, Brian, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been absolutely wonderful and fascinating, and I can't thank you enough for doing it. As I say, I know how busy you are, so it's really appreciated.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. You know.
Well, thank you so much. Well, look, enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you out again doing. You know, we'll be able to catch Little B live again, hopefully at some point.
I'd like that very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brian.
You're very welcome.
Again. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.